Hello, this is Franklin Wepner. Another video here about Michael Chekhov. I hope you saw the first one. This is the second one in the series, dealing with the 5 hours of lectures that he gave in 1955 before he died. You can find them on the internet. They're called the Master Classes, I think, Theater and the Art of Acting. I'm going more or less in order here, using my notes from his lectures and a couple of other sources. First session, well, let's see, overall, I pointed out in the first tape that my main focus in these essays, in these videos, is to relate his work to Gestalt therapy, since I think they're very direct parallel processes. Basically, when he says to an actor to create a character and to start imagining the character, the process is directly parallel to Gestalt therapy dream work, where an actor is working on a dream, seeing the images and trying to search for his higher self that he's going to discover at the end of the 3 hours of the Gestalt session. I should make a point that when I do Gestalt sessions, on dreams, I do 3-hour sessions, which is not the way usually people usually do them when they want to make a lot of money doing the process, but my focus is not usually on making money, it's making other things, like truth and stuff like that, sanity. Okay, so today we're continuing that process. The beginning, the focus was mostly on awareness and contact boundary. I'm not going to repeat all that stuff. Today, the focus is mostly going to be on what what Chekhov calls sensations. In other words, we're dealing with here emotions and how emotions and ideas are related and not related. And it gets very murky, I'll tell you right now. And for me, it's not easy to pull this stuff all together, but I think I've barely got a handle on it now. And I'm going to make a go for it. All right. Okay, so we're going to start off with the section 2 here of his lecture, where he talks about inhaling and exhaling. And I'm going to make a point that that's directly parallel to 2 stages of the Gestalt therapy work on a dream or relationship. So let's start with inhaling. And what Michael Chekhov says is that inhaling, I'll quote him here, is absorbing your experiences, you are inhaling. Later on he says you're accumulating. And that's exactly what you do in Gestalt therapy when you do what's called awareness, work on awareness. I'm aware of this, that's one, I've accumulated one thing. All right, I'll do it right now. I'm aware of a redness over there. That's accumulated item number 1. Pure idea number 1. If I set a clock, then I wouldn't really be doing my awareness work. I'd be jumping to a mixture of awareness and something else. So I'm just saying I see something, some redness over there, and now I see some blackness over there. So I have I've accumulated 2 moments of reality, of gestalts, items of experience. He would call them sensations. Why? Again, I repeat what I said in the first lecture, the first video, that you have to use a dictionary when you deal with a person like Michael Chekhov. If you open up the dictionary and you see what sensation means, you discover that he picked a beautiful word there. Of course, he doesn't tell you what he means. He just assumes that you'll either figure it out or you won't figure it out, and it doesn't really matter. But I think it does matter. So, the word sense, if I sense something, like I sense something with my fingers, that's a feeling. They feel right now a little bit cool. Now I'm sensing my nose. I'm sensing an itch in my nose. Okay? Now I'm sensing my throat, that I swallow something, I wouldn't say a throat, that's an abstract idea. I'm sensing something going up and down, some tension here. Okay, maybe that's a better way to put it. And we would call that a swallow. But it's also, a sense is also an idea. What's the sense in talking about Michael Chekhov? In other words, what's the idea? What do we want to learn? What's the wisdom that's here? So the word sense is a hybrid word. It means emotion and it means an idea. And that's exactly what a gestalt is. When I say I'm aware of redness over here, that's a sense. Redness is something that affects my eyes. It's in that sense, it's a sensation. But the idea of redness is also a pure idea. Maybe it's a pure Platonic idea. Redness. So here we have a word, one experience. I'm aware of this one simple item, or I'm aware of something, some rubbing here, some friction, that's another one. Rubbing is I feel something, and it's also a description of something that happens or a process. Okay, so these are hybrid words, and it might not seem like a big deal now, but watch what happens now when we go ahead with the Gestalt process of inhaling. In other words, accumulating. If you want to get philosophical, and this stuff is philosophical, it must be at least 5,000 years old, we call it Platonic collection. The idea that if you start having awareness moments and go on for 3 hours, you accumulate more and more awarenesses, and they integrate. It's an integrative experience. You go from small gestalts, patterns. Gestalt, the word means pattern or holes, to bigger ones that encompass the little ones. Theologically, they used to talk about angels, and then you get a gazillion angels that somehow becomes one archangel. And the word that Chekhov is loaded with theological background and jargon here, so for him an archetype is like an angel, archangel. It's a high-level awareness, a high-level collection of accumulations of ideas and sensory and totally integrative process here. Now watch what happens if I keep going. I keep going 3 hours. You know, I do my awareness work, and then I discover that I'm playing some kind of game, maybe a top dog, underdog game, as we call it in Gestalt therapy. So I'm busy criticizing, judging people, and then the director tells me, no, that's not awareness. You should be play the top dog, underdog job. And as I thought, I'm judging. Okay, this is a crappy. My notes are very crappy here. They're all out of order here. I can't barely make sense of them. So I didn't see the notes for a moment there because I'm busy judging them. And so the director says, you see, that's a game. You're playing a game. So I peel away that layer of ego crud, then I stop playing that judging game, and then I go on and I get into another game. And I feel so bad I don't know enough to do this properly. I'm playing the crybaby game now. The director says, hey, you realize you're playing the crybaby game? He says, oh, it's okay. So I'm getting more and more objectivity. I'm peeling away one layer of ego crud after the other. And if I keep going for 3 hours, I wouldn't dare doing that right now, probably bore the hell out of everybody. But if I did it for 3 hours, what happens is, sooner or later, it happens a lot, you peel away enough crud on the one hand, enough self-interruptions on the one hand, and on the other hand, you're accumulating more and more integrative, more and more powerful feelings, and more and more cognitive revelations and enlightenment experiences, until at some point the dam bursts and you have what they call in Gestalt therapy explosion into authentic emotion or authentic action. And in Gestalt therapy, Fritz Perls usually likes to say that there are 4 major types: grief, orgasm, anger, joy. Those are the 4 that he cites. And these are somehow primal, like primal scream kind of stuff, you know. when you say explosion into joy, just like Michael Chekhov says, that particular sensation, when you have it, it brings up a whole huge variety of possible kinds of joy. And then you look at your character you're trying to make, and you decide now which of my of this sensation of joy, and I need joy here for this particular section of the script. Okay, so which aspect of joy am I going to use from my sensation work that I did to plug into the scene, so that I have something to illuminate. So I'm not just playing my self-portrait, but I'm playing something which came from a much higher or deeper, or whatever kind of word you want to use, place, a pure idea of joy, not just a subjective, sentimental shtick of joy, okay? So that's how it should go. That's how it should go. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Because what happens is you have what I've seen on the internet, I haven't been to every studio in the world teaching Michael Chekhov these days, but from what I've seen, what he tells us to do right here in his 5 hours of lectures, he says, oh, these sensations, you don't need to prepare them at all. You just order them up, you know. You say, okay, give me some joy. And the little genie inside your, what he calls inner laboratory, your inner genius, or whatever it is, comes up with the joy. Now, how is that different from what other directors would call obligating yourself? You know, forcing yourself, squeezing emotion out of an actor, and just that probably does as much damage as all the other stuff Chekhov is complaining about. So I don't buy it. On the one hand, I think Michael Chekhov is very, very important, and his system is very important as far as he goes. But what's missing from Michael Chekhov is what I just told you. The grounding in the preparation. He says no preparation is necessary, and I say that's BS. That's potentially damaging. It's fine if you want to deal with the pure experience of redness, like he says in his lecture. He says, you know, red colors are pure ideas, they're sensations. But if you want to deal with important emotional content of scenes, the actor needs preparation. Okay, just like I see the same thing in Meisner's book on acting. You know, he tells the actor, cry, cry, cry. I don't care where you get it from. Cry, cry. You know, like beating a donkey, you know, with a stick. And the donkey could barely move, and what do you end up with? A dead donkey that way, a donkey with a broken leg. So these, on the one hand, this stuff is probably better than other stuff. It's probably better than sense memory and the method acting, and the Meisner and Chekhov. But to do Meisner and Chekhov without proper work on something like Gestalt therapy, where you very systematically, in a delicate, gradual way, work your way through to get to these, what he calls sensations, or what Fritz Perls calls explosions into authentic emotion. To do it in a haphazard way with a bunch of, you know, you got a bunch of 20 actors in a room paying an enormous amount of money with the pressure to produce, otherwise they get thrown out of the class and all this and all that and the other thing. It's pathetic. It's not right. And I look at that stuff and I feel very bad. So that's one reason I'm making this video today. To stick in my 2 cents and say, as far as Meisner and Chekhov go, they're doing beautiful work as far as helping people to get into the here and now, out of their heads, discovering awareness work, and but there's a danger. If they do it without enough preparation and with all that professional pressure to generate results, to get gigs, and all that stuff, I think it's very dangerous. Okay, so now that I said that, what's left on my agenda here? So let's go on with my description, okay? So let's say you've done your inhaling, you've accumulated a lot of awareness of moments. Let's say you did your preparation, you did 3 hours of Gestalt work on, well, last time I talked about imaginary dream where I'm working with a tree and a cloud, so I'll just continue with that simple dream right now. Let's say I followed over 3 hours, it led me to important connections to a relationship to my mother or whatever. Let's say my mother. I did a little bit of work on that last time also. That she was 103 years old, and I was saying goodbye to her because I felt I really should go back to Israel, even though I knew she might die soon. And I did it. Okay, so that was a very painful emotional experience, and I worked through it also, by the way, on the internet. You'll find a 90-minute video where I'm dealing with that. It's called Hitbodedut, in other words, showing how to, talking to God. I was using that relationship to my mother as part of the Gestalt therapy work I was doing in that situation. But anyway, so let's say you've done the preparation, okay, and you have a few explosions in your collection, and in fact he says it very well. Chekhov says it very well. He says, let me see if I get it right here. Let's see, where is it here? He says you've gone through, and he just throws this in here without really saying what he means. He says you've gone through a fear of forgetfulness in your hidden laboratory, and these emotional, sensation experiences you've had have become elemental parts of your psychology. That's what I said. Or in other words, what we would call essences of your personality. And they're very simple compared to complicated moods and emotions. Because, like I pointed out, it's an explosion into joy, explosion into rage, explosion into grief, explosion into orgasm. These are very basic things that include all kinds of nuances. So he says, in your inner laboratory, hidden laboratory, you go through what he calls a fear of forgetfulness. Now, he didn't define it, but I can guess what he might be talking about if he knows enough, a little bit of philosophy here about Plato. Plato talks about anamnesis. Anamnesis. An means not, amnesis means forget, not to forget. And this is a very basic idea in philosophy. We want to encourage, by doing this Gestalt therapy process, for example, and having more and more encompassing awareness experiences, there's a process usually of going back somehow in your life to childhood experiences. In other words, moving back towards more and more prior experiences in your life, origin of your life. Origin, somehow the very basic moments of reality. And so by doing this process, these elemental experiences of basic pure ideas with a combination of emotions, before things got separated into emotions and ideas, that process of actuality or reality, the very beginning. And that also ties in, while we're at it, I may as well go ahead, ties in with Aristotle's idea of actuality is prior to potentiality. Actuality is prior to potentiality. Now that's a mouthful of jargon. What does it mean? Actually, in some sense, it's very simple. Let's say you're a hero in a war. You're about to make a decision to risk your life. That moment, when you make that decision, is a moment of truth, that you might call it, combines motions and ideas. And at that point, they're not split up into what I feel and what I think. As Aristotle would say, the knower, the known, and the knowing are all one at that moment. It's a moment of total oneness. And after that, in the process of becoming that hero and all the things you got to do and all the feelings you're going to have, then each of those moments after that somehow come out of that basic seed, that basic idea, that totally integrated idea. Okay? And the direct parallel there to the idea of Genesis. God wants to create the world. 1 first second, he creates everything. And then 6 days, it takes him 6 days to work it all out, plant all the seeds, and then each of the seeds comes up, different kinds of stuff. And then on the 7th day, the Sabbath, it all comes together. So we have the oneness, and then we have the manyness, and then we have the one and the many in the Sabbath. And that's the basic dialectical Process there, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. The one, the many, and the one in the many. God in the world and God. I went through this on the first tape, so I'm not going to drill it again here. Okay, so where was I? Oh yeah, I'm continuing on this process of inhale and exhalation, and exhaling. Okay, so you have this, you get to these, by inhaling, accumulating a lot of experiences, you get to these moments of explosions or pure sensations on a Big Bang level. You get back to the Big Bang where it all started. Emotionally, the psychophysical Big Bangs of your life that you might get, or primal moments of your therapy, if you want to call it that. Do you have to do this therapy process? No, nobody says you have to be an actor that works in depth, as long as you don't take parts that require that you work in depth. If you're willing to be a good sideman in the show, okay. But if you want to be, top shelf actor, well, you need to do top shelf preparation. That's your decision. Okay, so now gotta be careful, stay on the road here. So the next step is the expression, or the exhalation. You've sucked in a lot, and now the explosion happened. Now the explosion is already the exhaling. Something flows forth, So if you're religious, you could find in Maimonides' Guide to the Perplexed the idea that the inspiration for the prophet comes down and starts coming out. And as it comes out, just like Chekhov says, you decide which of these aspects, nuances of, say, its joy, you're going to use for the particular scene you're working on. And that's where you start bringing in the rational part of it, the filter. In other words, you're not going to just do your whole primal joy thing. You've got to filter it down, or as they say in religious people say, you've got to narrow down. It's a moment of what they call in Judaism tzimtzum, contraction. God contracts himself in order to the level of the vessels, so that the vessels won't get overloaded. And the script here you're working with is your vessels. You want to fill that vessels with enough joy, and not to destroy it and make a joke out of the scene. Reminds me, a long time ago I was in the opera chorus at Indiana University, and I was all psyched up about my little tiny bit part that I had there as what's his name, the tailor in a Puccini little opera. I had about 3 lines. And I got so much into it, the director screams out, "It's not a show about this tailor. It's about you're not the lead here." So you don't want to put too much joy into your joy beat there. Okay, you need to use, in other words, you need to structure it with a certain rational structure. The score. So the score, that's where we get the idea. The score is the mask of the character. You don't just show us your pure joy. You show us the joy filtered through this cognitive structure that you build up, which is the play, the script, the lines, the business, the whole stuff you got to do. All right. So we have an interplay between these sensations pouring out infinite light here, or moments of awareness, and the discipline that's necessary to present a score to make sense to an audience. And so we have this is very much formalized. I learned this stuff a long time ago when I did study a little bit with Mabu Mind's company, Lee Breuer, and they were teaching once at NYU, and I was privileged to watch their classes. They talk about the performer on top of his material. So here you are with access to your pure sensations, pure ideas coming from your unconscious, or if you like, or from heaven, if you're religious, wherever you think they're coming from, and somehow they're filtering through the score. But the score, without that illumination of what Chekhov calls your I consciousness, or that you being present here and now, getting new ideas every second, and feeding those into the score, the score by itself is just dead form, what they call dead form. So it needs to be illuminated by here and now, ideas. So the score needs to be done loosely, loose enough so that it can be flexible and reveal the underlying ideas, the truth of the character that you want to show. And then Chekhov points out that's the difference between a mask in real life, where the purpose of the mask is to hide yourself, and the purpose of a mask, if you're an actor, should be to reveal the underlying truth. But that the mask will only reveal the underlying truth if there is some underlying truth. If you really have some preparation, so you have some sensations or pure ideas or authentic emotions to put into it. Of course, just to make that clear, let's say I'm a person, I love to, a lot of people smile all the time. How are you? Hi, hi. How are you? Hi, I'm fine, thank you. That kind of person. That mask is hiding. You'll never know what that person thinks unless you come over there with a can opener and somehow squeeze it out of them. But if I'm doing a form as part of a score, let's say my form is to swim, all right? And let's say my pure idea of joy is, oh boy, there's somebody over there that I really want to swim to. So I project my image over there and say, here I come. And the form of swimming is illuminated by that image over there that I'm projecting right there over the camera. I don't know if it worked this time, but anyway. And then if there's some other reason why I'm swimming, because it's a shark behind me or something, then it's a different kind of form. So the idea illuminates the form, okay? And the idea is that you go beyond the image, beyond the form, beyond the collage, the junk collage of the dead form, and you illuminate it with this here and now sensations, with these pure ideas, platonic ideas, or whatever you want to call them. All right, so we have some idea what a mask is here. Just for, oh, by the way, just for the sake of the jargon, let's go back and get a little bit of philosophical jargon here, because if I'm going to go on, I'd like to feel free to use it. All right, so the inhaling part, the awareness part, goes by the name of what's called inductive logic. This was the term, I think, might have been formulated by somebody named Francis Bacon around 1400. And doucere means to lead, and in means in. It leads in, and in other words, leads in towards oneness from being scattered. And I start off with a moment of awareness of this, I'm aware of that, I'm aware of that, and I'm aware of something in my body, I'm aware of my fantasies. I start off with 1,000 moments of awareness, and gradually it all comes together into one here and now experience of feeling, okay, such and such. That's an integrated experience called inductive logic, based on awareness. The opposite of that is deductive logic. D means away from, and again, leads away from the oneness. So we go, for example, if God wants to create the world, he starts with one idea, one world, and he creates a gazillion creatures, and then what happens is the creatures start fighting with each other, and so we end up with an enormous amount of fragmentation, and then unless God or somebody else, UN or something, keeps track of what's going on, we get the whole thing gets erased. So we have one process which starts from goes from the general idea of of world, for example, to the particular ideas of animals and plants and all that. And the other process which starts from the particulars, the particular awareness moments, and works its way back to the oneness. From the particular to the general, and we have from the general to the particular, and we put the two of them together, and that's what they do in dialectical logic. But I'll use the framework of a Kabbalah here. So on the left side of the tree of life, starting with if you go down from what they call bina, which means building, you start building a world from the oneness. You start building, and then din. The second level is din. Judgments. You start judging and separating. This is different than this, and this is better than that. And And the next thing you know, you end up a whole world of different people, everybody with his own point of view, and it's very hard for them to relate to each other at all. And then from that, you start on the other end, if you want to heal the world, if you want to restore the oneness. So you go to yoga or something to have some, or the Gestalt therapy, to have some kind of integrated experiences. Okay, so the two come together. And so once upon a time in the 16th century, somebody named Luria in Palestine, Jewish Kabbalist, and somebody named Paracelsus in Germany, a Christian Kabbalist, or whatever you want to call it, alchemist. They both came up with the same idea around the same time, that there's some kind of a void which allows the process to make a U-turn. So you go from, and this is alchemy here. There are four basic elements: water, earth, air. I should do it on this side. Water, earth, air, fire, and that's a cycle. So water is the flowing of the expressing, the flowing forth of the energy from the pure source. You got your sensations, and then things split up, and you have your whole character and everything, and the big crisis, and all the opposites and everything, and that's the moment of earth, when everything is all in clogs, opposites, extremes. And then in this moment of earth, somehow opens up empty space, a void. A void. In Hebrew they call it the halal panui, the empty space. And Paracelsus looked at it chemically. He looked at this rotting worm or something. He sees gases coming out of this rotting worm. He says, that must be the beginning of new life. And now in that rotting gas, he's imagining that the semen from Adam in heaven is coming down to meet the eggs of Eve and the earth, and somehow that's going to create the new life, and from that void comes the fire of the new life. So the new idea that comes out of the void is the fire, and that completes the cycle, and the fire burns up all the opposites and brings everything back to the one. And that's the cycle of the Kabbalah. The burning up of the opposites goes by the name of tzimtzum, contraction, where each of the elements, each of the opposites has to contract itself in order to be eliminated, to be annihilated, to be negated, so that the new idea, the fire, can burn it up and bring everything back to the oneness again. So that's the idea of since all of these opposites are negations of the original one, the burning up of the opposites that come by the new idea that comes out of the void, the fire, is called the negation of the negations that restores everything to the oneness again. Okay, I know perhaps I shouldn't have tried to say all that in a little video like that, but I did it, okay? That's the way I think, okay? And that's the way I believe that CHEKHOV thinks, even though he sugarcoats it with all kinds of jargon for you. If you really want to understand what he's talking about, brush up your Plato, brush up your dialectical thinking, or else pay the price of not knowing what's going on. If you want to deal with CHEKHOV, you can deal with a lot of other acting teachers, but if you want to know what he's talking about here, do some homework. All right, so let me go on here on my agenda. I got another lost track here, about 25 minutes on this tape. Now let's see, what can I pack in here? Here's an interesting parallel to the expression idea. How does this sound? What CHEKHOV is saying that when you express yourself, you create the mask of the character, and you bring your sensations, your grounding, your pure ideas, your pure feelings into this character, and that somehow or other is a way for your higher self to illuminate this character. And you find exactly the same idea, not exactly, but basically the same idea in the Bible. And I'm looking right here at the Tanya, which is the Chabad, one of the Hassidic books here, in the first beginning of the book. And what does it say? It says basically the same thing. Let's find it here. Hope I can find it. Ah, here it is. So he's talking about the higher self of every person, which he calls the second soul. He says the second soul is truly a part of God above. As is written, quote, and he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And, quote, thou didst breathe it, the soul, into me. And it is written in the Zohar, quote, he who exhales, exhales from within him, that is to say, from his inwardness and his innermost, for it is something of his internal and innermost vitality that man emits through exhaling with force. Exhaling with force. That's exactly what CHEKHOV is asking the actor to do. Exhale with force. In other words, collect all these experiences and somehow or other, either you do it the right way or you think you're doing it the wrong way. But somehow or other, collect enough stuff so that you can express something authentic. And you're expressing with force, with energy, with artistic spirit, whatever, is what... And you blow that air into the character, into the nostrils of the character. So you're being a little God here, a little, what they call in Hebrew, tselem Elokim, an image of God, by acting as God acts. But you're creating a character the same way God creates you. Every second you're being created by having God blow into your nostrils. So you're blowing into your character's nostrils every second with your sensations, your pure ideas. And if you set up the score, your collage of elements to filter the energy properly, instead of pure joy, you want to filter it to make it seem like the right joy that fits the scene, the moment, then you're basically doing what God did when he created you. All right? So we see here that, well, we know from his biography that CHEKHOV was a very spiritually inspired person. He certainly wasn't studying Hasidic masters. He was studying Rudolf Steiner and Christianity, but as I mentioned in the first video, it just so happened his mother was Jewish, so I think I'm entitled to plaster a little bit of Kabbalah onto his work here. Okay, what's next? Okay, he talks about, he says, CHEKHOV says, don't do sense memory work. I'm not going to get into sense memory work. That's not something I'm an expert about. So I'll put that aside. But he says, instead of that, we need exercises for sensations. And I looked through his list of exercises that I found on the internet, and I watched people doing some of them on the internet. Well, certainly being body awareness is a lot of dealing with sensations, because awareness is sensations. If I'm aware of my body moving, and for example, if I want to do the idea of floating, okay, so I put the action of I'm floating. I take the idea of floating and I let that be the psychophysical motivation for my floating, and then I'm in touch with my body. So that's sensation. In other words, awareness moments. In other words, Gestalt therapy. So or Tai Chi, whatever you want to call it. But now, what happens if you want to use some of this hot personal material you get from your, let's say you do some Gestalt therapy work, and you've got a whole a carload of forms that you want to work with and build characters out of. I think I mentioned already that when you do Gestalt therapy, a lot of times you're peeling away, discarding one layer after another layer of games that you discover you're playing, like the crybaby game or the judgment game or one thing or the other, and gradually you approach more and more authentic, less game-ridden ways of relating to somebody, like one of your parents or something like that. Okay, so if you do something like that, and then at the end of the 3 hours you look back and you, with the hindsight and you, with wisdom, with your eye consciousness, and you're able to see how your new point of view, let's say you discover that, oh, I really should, what's important in life is to relate more warmly to people. Let's say, for example, that's your existential message you got from your dream. And meanwhile, you look back and you look at your first hour of what you were doing, and you see 3 different ways in which you were being judgmental or manipulating people, one thing and another, and not really bothering to take them personally. So then you've got this material. So when he says we need exercises for sensations, what kind of exercises is he talking about? Certainly if you're dealing with a body awareness, a floating exercise for your body is going to give you what you need. It'll help you do that. And what I've seen on the internet is just about everybody that demonstration I've seen of Chekhov's technique is people being very physical, but nobody's dealing with with preparation. Nobody's dealing with the heavier stuff. It's as though everyone's getting ready to do TV acting, but nobody's nobody's getting ready to do classics. You can't play Hamlet with awareness of your body awareness of how your arms are moving. That's not enough. You got to have something else. You got to do some other exercises. I agree. You need to work on the sensations. Remember, the sensations are these moments, explosions, these big bang experiences that are primal experiences that you need to ground your work in. So, I don't see it in Chekhov's work, but where I do see that kind of preparation, and I want to share with you, and I'm grateful that I know about it, is when I learned from the Mabel Minds Theater Company, and I learned things like an exercise called mocking your forms. Let's say mocking my form. So the form would be something, let's say I have an image of myself as being very judgmental, like this, maybe this form. I can't get up here and do too much in this little scene here. So let's say my judgmental form is this, and I'm looking down at somebody and saying, "You dumb shit," you know, okay? And I got my furrows here and all this, and let's say I feel very uncomfortable about using this side of myself, you know, and revealing this in front of an audience. I need distance from this to be able to play with this, to be able to use this stuff dialectically, freely, playfully as actor material, and not, you know, just have to go back to being my own caustic ego. So we need an exercise like mocking the form. So, you know, the exercise simply, I pretend I see myself over there with my scowl, and I start talking to myself, "Franklin, hey, you look like some kind of orangutan over there." So what did I do now? I just made this form into But the basic idea of the top dog criticizing the underdog there is there, but now it's not just this, it's I expanded it. I expanded that one little seed and gave it some branches, and I could even put some music on and make it into a dance, whatever. There are a lot of ways, techniques of expanding these sensations or primordial ideas that you get from Gestalt therapy. We call essences of personality, games, or whatever you want to call them. And they should be in this Michael Chekhov workbook, but they're not there. Instead, you have people running around doing 1950s gym classes and calling it Michael Chekhov. But he himself says, you know, the body should be servant to the psychophysical aspect, the psychology, but he doesn't teach that. See, that's what's, again, he and Meisner, they go up to the doorstep of Gestalt therapy, and then either they don't know or don't want to know, or don't want to teach, or something or other, but they stop right there, or maybe just you guys don't want to learn, whatever it is. It's like they just leave out the most important part. Okay. So yes, I agree. We need exercises for sensations, but let me see if I can think of some other ones while I'm at it. Well, for example, you can do the form with music. If I do my scowl with music, now I expanded it without music. I can put a text in there. To be or not to be, that is the question. Therefore, the ideas of to be or not to be expanded the form in a different direction. So each of these elements takes that seed that came out of the actuality, the moment of Genesis, the moment of that primordial moment where the emotion and the idea were the same at the moment of the explosion there, the Big Bang, and expanded it, gave us another variation in the Garden of Eden. All right. Let's see. So let me look a little further here. Another thing that I want to take issue with. I can understand why he has a loyalty to the idea. I think his background had a lot to do, came from a certain amount of communism in Russia. So he's very much conscious of community. You might say his ideal is a kind of a watered down version of what Fritz Perls would call a Gestalt commune. But he said, what Chekhov is saying, and this is where I disagree. I agree with Perls that a Gestalt commune, where everybody in a sense has done Gestalt therapy, work with everybody else, and everybody knows how to have a contact boundary and relate in an I-thou way to each other, and build up an ensemble feeling for a community and all that stuff, based on knowing the other person. But when you say, be friendly, like Chekhov says, be friendly with everybody, that's like saying be unfriendly with everybody. It creates a different sameness. It still doesn't establish a relationship. So instead of saying, ignore all the things you don't like about the other person, well, he does say, like Nachman and Breslav does say, he says, find the good points, find the things that you can enjoy. For example, notice what's good about the other guy's acting, that's important. So, and by finding a few good points, you can begin to build up a contact boundary with that person. But what's missing here is the idea, again, do a little bit of partner work with Gestalt, work on your relationship. Discover which elements of awareness and which elements of contact in a relationship with each of your scene partners is missing, and remedy that. You know, for example, look at the scene partner and well, the Richter could supervise this. And if I'm looking at my scene partner right now and I say, I see that you're criticizing me by the look on your face, you know, and then the director would say, no, that's not awareness, that's a judgment, you know. And so by that I would learn something. And then if I went on and said, oh, that makes me feel not so good, you know, and then I right away, I don't like you either. But then the director would say, well, wait a minute, let that land, let that go down. How do you feel about that? What kind of how do your body feel that you're being criticized like that? All right. And then when I'm really ready, then I'm ready to give back my response. In other words, some basic couple work, partner work, with scene partners here, is I think what Chekhov would like. But just to say, like everybody's your friend, that's just creating another wall between people, because everybody knows half the people are not your friend, and to pretend they are when they're not is not helping the situation. Okay. So again, I keep coming back to the point that what Meisner and Chekhov give us is work which goes up to the doorstep of the deeper elements of something like Gestalt therapy, and then stops there because of the way it's taught, mostly, probably because, first of all, you have 20 people paying a lot of money to be in a class, all this pressure, and the work I'm talking about needs to be one-on-one for 3 hours at a time, and how many actors and how many directors are going to wanting to do that besides me around here, I don't know. Okay. See, when Chekhov says it's dangerous for an actor to neglect the voice of that higher self, and then sooner or later it will revenge itself for its imprisonment, and then doesn't tell you how to do it. What good is his browbeating? Okay, I'm jumping over here to the section on Awakening Artistic Feelings. This is section 6 of the lecture. He says, no playing efforts can substitute for the wisdom of our subconscious. All our private, subjective, particular life experiences are amalgamated, condensed, summarized by our subconscious. They become archetypes, prototypes of feelings. These archetypes we call sensations. Only these archetypes can we experience directly, immediately, spontaneously. Okay, well, that's what we've been talking about. These archetypes are the equivalent of, if you think of awareness work as going around the cycle of a dialectical process, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, each time you're aware of something, and then going up higher and higher levels of integration in a Gestalt therapy process for 3 hours. So you're getting from angels, you get up to archangels. When you start zeroing in with a relatively game-free, dealing with your mother, your father at the last hour of the session. So you're on the level of archangels. In other words, much bigger gestalts, bigger patterns, more encompassing, where more and more the feelings and the ideas, the emotions and the ideas are integrated into the oneness, with less fragmentation. And those are archangels rather than just angels, which represent each of the separate forces individually, separate gestalts individually. Okay. Let's imagine our subconscious as a kind of laboratory where our life experiences are altered, modified. A kind of metamorphosis occurs there, although we are unconscious of all these processes. This subconscious hidden laboratory gives us many good results if we do not interfere with its work by trying to remember particular separate life experiences by using our sense memory. Okay, so this laboratory is hidden laboratory is not so hidden at all. It's simply a Gestalt session on a dream, on a particular relationship. That's the laboratory, and it's nothing very mysterious and unconscious about it. It's right there if you want to do the work. And sure enough, that's what happens where our life experiences, in other words, our awareness moments, things which we imagine. Every moment of awareness is imagining something. What he said talks about his imagination. He's talking about awareness, contact boundary. Kind of metamorphosis occurs there, although we are unconscious. What kind of metamorphosis? That's exactly this dialectical process, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. For example, if I'm stuck on this relationship judging all the time. Then if I peel that layer of judging away, as I peel away my work on the onion, I stop judging and I go on to something more authentic, more contactful. That's a metamorphosis. That negation of the oneness, which interferes with the dialectical process, being a oneness, is negated. It's a negation of the negation. The judgment game, the top dog under game, is negated, metamorphosized, changed into something else. It's not that the energy disappears. The trace of that x minus x, top dog underdog thing, is preserved in the next higher level. You don't forget about it. It's there in your it's a trace. It's there. It's something you can use later on. You remember, it's a seed, an element. Now it's in your personality. It's part of your part of your material. Okay, but by the end of the 3 hours, you're, as we say, you're a performer. You're on top of your material. You can go beyond those images. You've done some mocking of the forms. You're free now to use them creatively as a score, as a mask. All right. So that's why it's important that we do this Gestalt process again. Because if you didn't, if you got stuck in that judging thing and that interfered with your work and your character and your work with the scene partners and everything else, that's what he says here. Here he says, this subconscious hidden laboratory gives us many good results if we do not interfere with its work by trying something. He says trying to remember particular separate life experiences, but trying anything, because trying is a deliberate thing, and this process needs to be an active passivity, not pushing it, just not pushing it over. The awareness needs to happen here and now without trying. Trying destroys the here and now process. So this judging process here interferes with that flow, because I start right away imposing judging on the flow of awareness here and blocking it. Okay? Well, I think I've got a couple more minutes left on this tape, but I'm not sure what to do with it. Ah, here's another thing. He says these sensations that you discover, the awareness moments, I'm calling them now awareness moments, whether they're big bang moments or little awareness moments or just something red, these pure ideas that you discovered. One way to keep track of them is to give them names. For example, calling that one the redness one and calling that one the joy ones. And he says each one is like a package that you open up with all kinds of varieties of that kind of essence or pure idea or sensation, and you could give them names. He says you can baptize them. Baptize them. Now that's a very theological word to use, but it shows that the underlying theological connection here very nicely. In this process of doing a 3 hour work on a dream, you're going through about 20 different, peeling away 20 different layers of partial truth. What you're doing is peeling away 20 different, theologically speaking, you're peeling away 20 different false ideas of God, false names of God, to get to the true name of God. And theologically, this is called the via negativa, the negative way. By peeling away, and God is what's left when you peel away all the crud, in that sense. Instead of piling on, God is wonderful, God is this, that's the positive way, adding up more and more virtues. So the negative way is to peel away more and more layers of what God is not. But each thing you peel away, the idea of giving it a name, baptizing it, is a naming of God. So this process is a process of naming God, in a sense. If you're thinking of God as the ultimate truth you're working towards here, the existential message of the Word of God, whatever it is, it shows nicely his theological, Christian theological jargon here. It's funny coming from a nice Jewish boy. Okay, what else we got?